Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. This is going to be 13th occasion of exchanging together to the extent permitted by a live stream. I'm glad that the year is starting with people being at home, because that makes it possible to compensate for the crazy news we are having otherwise. Anyway, long sigh. I don't know what to say. Today we are going to process feedback that has been given to the works that we performed on the stream in the last few weeks. And that is part of the work as well, to process the feedback and ensure that things go the ways that other people like it as well. And there is a long tail of things to care about, which I'm going to put in a to-do file. So all this we've done before. So the to-do file for today. So today, that is going to be January 11. We have a couple of items, discrete items. I'm going to first enumerate them, and then we're going to review their relative priority and therefore in which order we're going to work on them afterwards. So one thing that someone has reported is that the CRTP v1 log file format is ambiguous or not reliably parsable. This is a non-issue, but now that we are interested, we have more and more people that are interested in parsing log files, that is becoming an issue. And so even though we have a JSON format in version 1.1, in the default configuration, it's possible that we're not going to provide JSON enabled by default because it's much verbose and creates log files that are much larger. And so it's very likely we have some interest in providing a mildly backward compatible format that doesn't have this problem. So that is something we can have a look at. Then there is an issue, which is that the log file header for JSON output files does not use the JSON format. That is an outright bug. So if you specify, I want this file output to be in JSON, the header of the file is not. I think that's surprising. I thought there would be a test for this, but obviously there is none. And so part of the work that needs to be done here, besides fixing the bug, is adding the missing unit tests. Another dimension that we got some feedback for is that there is a need for 20.2 and optionally any later version using the CRTP v1 or 2 format to include the cluster ID and node ID on every log line. The reason for this is that when folk are using automatic log processors, they usually have filters or detection of events based on regular expressions. And when these expressions match, they are going to redirect this output to a separate system. And today we don't provide the cluster ID and node ID on every log line. We only provide them at the beginning of log files. And so if one gathers log entries from multiple clusters or multiple nodes in one cluster in a central place, today there is not an easy way to disambiguate which event is coming from which node. So that is going to make the life of, for example, site reliability engineers easier. The reason why it matters in version 20.2, and so we're going to start to work there as opposed to the newer version, is because Cockroach Cloud's next release is running version 20.2, and that is where this request is coming from. So we want to solve that problem for that version at least. Is there a slight delay between sounds and mouth movement? Oh, that might be very well the case. Thank you for noticing. I will also take suggestions about how to fix this. I must admit, I'm a noob with streaming and camera, and I think my friend Jordan already explained this to me before, and I will admit that I forgot. So, if you have suggestions about how to go about this, I will take them. All right. So, coming back to the to-do list for today. Another thing that has been come up, which is that the non-server CockroachDB or command line, really, Cockroach CLI commands don't process the log flags properly. That is a bug too. And then there are long tail of structured logging, and there are 2 items in here, and that is to convert the experimental SQL audit logging and optionally the SQL performance log to use structured events, and create a SQL log for queries performed by admin users. So this is actually an issue that has been filed already. So I would add the missing issue links when we get to that. So let's work on priority here. So how would I estimate the priority of those work items? So there are bugs and there are feature requests. All right, so let's do the bugs first. I'm not saying we're starting with the bugs, but we need to categorize things. So the first item here is a feature change, because we can't simply change the format to fix a bug. Like, we can consider this to be a bug, really. It might be a design bug, but currently the format is what it is, and folk are already assuming what it is to make parsing tools. So we can't just change the format and expect folk to be happy with that. It has to become a new format if we change something here, and that would be a new functionality. The limitations, the fact that it's not parsable, is actually documented, so it's not like people are not aware of it. This feature here is for Cockroach Clouds. Cockroach Cloud is a priority for everyone, and so that is number 1 anyway. And now we are going to sort of 3 things here. So these are 2 security features, and this is like more for enterprise folk. I would say all those 3 issues here are similar priorities in terms of how much demand there is for them. And now what we can do is the analysis of how much benefit we get for the investment. Like, given they all have more or less the same impact, and the one with the smallest investment, we have the best return on investment. So I think the number 1 here is the one that will require the least investment, because the functionality is extremely well contained, whereas the other 2 are not. So all those 3 things will become relevant at some point, but if I want to show something on stream today that has impact and a good ROI, I will probably start with this one. Anyway, and then coming back to the bug fixes related to the feature changes, the log file header, it's not super important, because I am foreseeing that folk who are going to use JSON are not going to use log file, but instead network logging when that is enabled. So we'll add that. Oh, and we have an end finish. Add testing to the Fluent integration PR, obviously. That is actually a more intriguing and maybe concerning one. If we want to pretend to our users that they can use the log argument to overload logging parameters, and the log flag is outright ignored, which is, I think, the bug, that is just not great. So in terms of impact, the first one here is probably the most important. All right. So in terms of order for the work, therefore, I will say the highest impact, higher priority is going to be this Cockroach Cloud thing. Then we're going to fix this flag. And then the other things are more or less in the same order. And so we have contenders in terms of priority. One is this unfinished PR. And the other one is this one. And we'll see how far we get on stream with those 3 items already. I mean, all the work needs to be done eventually, but since this stream has to be completed within the time we have allocated, I won't be able today to let it slip past the time frame because I have a meeting just afterwards. It might be that we just don't have time to do much more than this. All right. Let's work on this. So this is an optional feature. So let's file this simply as a new issue because it's not filed yet. Ta-da! Feature. And so it's going to be logging, add an option to include cluster ID and node or SQL instance ID on every log line. This is needed for CC log file scraping, retrieving the cluster ID and other parameters at the start of log files is too cumbersome. Prefer to have the data on every line. So, logging, enhancements, and then project, and then there we go. Cool. It looks like the camera has gone blank. Let's try to fix that. I don't know what happened. That was odd, and the zoom factor is completely off. Let's try to tweak this. Now everyone can see the big mess I have behind the screen. What a minor annoyance. Let's go. Ta-da! Cool. All right. I'm going to tell the camera to not switch off automatically. I think there is a auto off thing. Never. All right. Off we go. Cool. I think this works. Cool, cool, cool. Let's get back to this. Add an option to include blah, blah, blah. So here we can say, well, the way to add options in CockroachDB is via cluster settings. Unfortunately, this feature is needed for SQL pods in CockroachDB 20.2, and SQL pods don't have cluster settings. And therefore, this option has to, by necessity, be a tweak. And so we are going to make a 20.2 specific approach, or maybe make it on master and backport it like we do usually. So we have, I think it's auth.log. No, auth.log. I want to use the examples that we already have in some other place. So that's not, I'm surprised. Oh, here. Let's see. So there is already a flag here, I think. So that is going to be futil. This one. So there is a flag here. So that is going to be a similar option. I think we need to make a PR that is very specific to Cockroach 20.2. In fact, all this code is so different in the new versions that we have no choice but. So let's do this. So I have a different go path for all things related to 20.2. And I'm going to cross the fingers that Emacs is able to process this properly. We'll see. Okay, surprise, surprise, it's going to be here. We have just a cluster ID here. So we need the node ID probably and the cluster ID. So let's see, is a node ID already by any chance in the log file of interests? Let's see. Yes, the node ID is already there. The thing I'm missing is the cluster ID. So I think we're just going to add the cluster ID to those events. That's the minimal amount of work we need. Cool. Cool. So that is in the structured. There is a file where log entry maybe, where all the log entry is being formatted. I suppose that would be here. Let's see. Entry.tags. Yeah, that seems right. I'll put log entry. Is this one? No. Add structured is here. All right, that's the one we need. Cool. If, and we're going to have this var always at cluster ID. Cool. And where would this cluster ID be? Oh, it is being set behind a mutex, and we probably do not want that mutex to be held at this point. So that is not the right point to do this. So let me bring this code out of here, and we do need to have it here, in fact. Cool. So that's going to happen here. And so we are not going to do it this way. We're going to say entry.tags. Oh, that is a problem. we have an issue here, which is that this cluster ID value is not in the logger, it is in the logging struct. And I don't know that we have a mutex for this. Oh, it's here. I see. Do I hold this logging mutex somewhere? We don't, probably. Yeah, I'm going to check if we have an atomic string somewhere. Let's see. Util, sync util, atomic string. Atomic string. Yes, we have atomic.value. I like this. That is better. All right, we can do this. So we are going to say logging.clusterID. Let's get cluster Cool. Cool. And this cluster ID is not set yet in the right way, but we're going to fix this now. Oops. Cluster ID is here. So let's get it out of the mutex. Where's it? Here. And sync util atomic string. That is also set conditionally by the envar. C doc string for always at cluster. Cool. All right. And now we need to explain this. Always at cluster ID when set indicates that the cluster ID must be reported in the log tags on every log line. So it's possible only with the cluster ID index if requested and after the cluster ID is known already. Cool. Actually, we don't need it to do here. Superseded in by JSON logging, which includes functionally. And we're going to explain the same here. We use a cluster setting here because we need this feature in SQL pod logs, and in version 2 SQL pods don't have access to cluster. Oh, an envar, sorry. this feature is immediately obsolete as version 1.1 has JSON logging and includes the cluster ID already. I mean, even if there was someone to complain that we didn't need all the cluster ID in logging events in version 21.1, in certain case, and we wanted to have a configuration flag to do this, and we would use the new configuration system that 21.1 has. Is that has options per sync and so on and so on. And so anyway, this entire way of doing things would just not be relevant in 21.1. So that goes away. Come on, I can't type anymore. Cluster ID.get, cluster ID. Great. And then we can remove this. Poof. Is there some other reference to this somewhere that we need to handle? No, it doesn't seem like it. We're going to run the tests in this package. And see what this gives us. All right, so that is not yet the testing we need, actually. We just added a new feature with an environment variable, and so we actually want to check that this feature produces the output we need. So first of all, we're going to check this manually, and then we're going to add an integration test. That is doing an end-to-end testing to see we have this data. Okay, so the first sound we just heard, that means that the unit testing in the util log package has completed successfully. Now we're building the CockroachDB 20.2 and check that we get the output we need in there. All right. I need the client. All right. And now I can test my result. That did not work. We are expecting the log file here to include. Oh, of course, we need an environment variable to be set. Haha. Aha. All right, all right, all right. So how is that environment variable called again? I forgot already. Cockroach always log cluster ID. All right. Cockroach log cluster ID is 1. And then we try again. That is better. Look at this. Cool. Cool, cool, cool. I think that is a success. We are going to check this now, of course. We are going to check this. But at least it seems to work. All right, so this feature exists. We probably want to create a branch for this. All right. how do we make this work? End-to-end testing is using TCL testing. So there is already probably a log file for this somewhere. Would it be? Server Dino, I actually don't know. We probably secure, multiple nodes, missing node output. I don't know. Exact log, maybe. Let's see. Well, actually, is there a test for authentication log? Yeah, probably not here. Let's see. Let's see. All right, so we're going to add a test here. Test first auth log. Import some example file from this. Start a server. Log file is going to be auth.log. We are going to set an environment variable. How does this work in TCL? I don't remember. Something with colon env. Yeah, there we go. So let's do this. And the other one we need is from this auth file here. Not word. I don't remember. Oh, come on. I'm not very good at this. How is this file working? SQL pgwire server.go maybe? Yes, this one. Go. And now we are going to run a SQL command that I don't remember how this works actually. I don't remember how any of this works. But of course we have other tests to have a look. I'm glad. So argv SQL select one search there. Look at this. Cool. And now we are going to okay, so that is spawning a SQL shell. I actually don't need this. What we are going to do is to have a shell session that is telling us do we want to grep? Maybe we just want to grep. Maybe grepping is the right way to do this. I like when there are greps. Maybe start test check set C authentication events are reported. Authentication succeeded. Probably we want to have one that is failing. All right. Failed. And then another one. that the auth events have both node ID and cluster ID. And so we are going to check this by checking that we have this and 1, comma, cluster ID, and then we probably want something that looks like a cluster ID. Nah. I trust it. I trust it. Like this, and then like this. And after that, what is the structure of a log event? Cluster ID, some kind of digits, and then authentication. Succeeded or failed. Let's go. Let's go! I think this is foul. This is fine. And so how do we run those tests? With a command line. Expect. So let's ensure that there's no other process running. And then remove any remaining log files. And then expect pkg cli interactive test force auth log cockroach. There we go. What does it say? Source tier does not exist. That's possible. That is possible because I need a secure server. And that is not what has been created here. Test secure. If I want a secure server, I need to ask for it. I think it's not created for me by default. There we go. Cool. Cool. And probably start secure server. Source tier. So the source tier I will probably need to adjust in a second. We'll see. And then we are going to copy paste this. Doesn't hurt. Right. Start secure server. Cool. Secure server. And at the end, I have to stop secure server. Stop secure underscore server. And I think start secure underscore server. There we go. Ah. Yeah, so this command where this client does not exist needs to be fed def null. Otherwise it will ask for a cool connection refused. Aha. Let's see. Better. Okay, I like this. Now the test is saying that it doesn't find the error. Oh, it says user does not exist. Not exist. Okay, well, probably we need to. does it say? Connection refuse. Oh. Create. All right. Client authentication succeeded. Oh, test user is actually a user that has a valid certificate. That is not great. Some user. Let's see. Cool. That is better. Okay, now we are running into the wonders of Tickle. That is not great. That is not great. What's happening here is that the Tickle language uses the square brackets as a function call syntax. And I also want to use square brackets for regular expressions. And of course, the overlap is not pleasant. Cool. Okay, that is better. So now it's telling me that this... yes, okay, so... Pum pum. Pum pum. Okay, that's a different problem. Better. Yes. Yes, 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 yes. Cool. This test has succeeded. All right, so authentication failed. And the cluster ID is included and everything is there. I'm happy. All right. New test. Change here. Documentation. Change the format. And now we are going to work on a commit message. All right, so conditionally include the cluster ID on every line. All right, so this is going to be release not none. We don't have user-facing changes really here. I mean, like this is using user-facing, but it's a feature that's immediately obsolete. So right, so we are going to explain this. All right, so for Cockroach Cloud, centralized security logging, we want the ability to route the logging events from the files where they are written into a collector. This routing is done line by line to enable log aggregation across multiple clusters or multiple nodes. We need to disambiguate which log entries come from which cluster and which node. Oh, actually, this PR is incomplete. I'm going to come back to this in a second. Actually, we need to... There is a PR ready by a coworker that will make this work. Author NT Kimball. Is it still open? Maybe it's closed. Yeah. Actually, it is not open, so we are going to file an issue about this. A new issue. Server ensures that the node ID field is populated. By the SQL instance. Okay, well, actually, we're going. That doesn't work. Okay, we're going to basically investigate this ourselves once we finish. Shouldn't be doing too many things at the same time. This is like ADHD problem. First things first. To enable, we need to disambiguate to log and choose which cluster and which node. Zip bash accommodate this requirement by adding the cluster ID on every output line when the environment, and then we're going to copy paste this, is set to a true-ish value. Note, this feature is needed in version 1.1 because in that version JSON logging is available and that already includes the server identity bits. Cool. Cool. All right, so the issue is the following. We just verified that we have the cluster ID here. However, we just tried this with a SQL, with a full node, and the features that is needed is really for SQL pods in the multi-tenant architecture. And so what we really want here is to verify that the logging is also available with SQL tenant processes, and that might not be the case already. And so it is important that we test that too. So how do you do this? In fact, I don't remember exactly, but we're going to figure that out. So first of all, I need to start a server. Oh, I said that I needed to fix my tests to ensure that we have certs here. That is now done. All right, let's go again. So this is starting a KV or a full server. And now we want to start a tenant server. So first of all, we need to create a tenant. I don't remember how to create a tenant. Cool. I like this. All right. Now we need to start the tenant. So how do you do this? Start empty, start SQL. I don't remember the arguments. So tenant ID is 1, 2, 3, I think. And then SQL add is 8. And then log tier is log 2, which I need to create first. And then source tier. And I need a different HTTP address. And the server is starting. I see its output directory. Tenant client cert not found. How do I do this? I don't know how to do this. How do I create a tenant certificate? Tenant client search not found. I don't know, but it might not be a problem. Maybe it's not a problem. Let's see if I can access the clients. That doesn't sound great, but it's not too bad either. Actually it is a problem. Tenant client search not found. KV tenant CL tenant connector. I don't know how to create a tenant certificate, in fact. That is a kind of a bummer. That sounds okay. I can do this. Okay. Oh, it's probably cert. Yes, that was it. Cool. And then we are going to create a tenant client. Create tenant client. Okay. And here client tenant and 1, 2, 3. Sounds right. Start again. Better. Initial content IP sense. Oh, okay. I can tolerate this. Sorry, it's not local. Sorry. Oh, come on. This is localhost. Okay. So localhost. It works. And now I need to start my tenant by caveats. There we go. It started. Cool. That's better. Now we are going to try this with the environment variables that we have from earlier. Our earlier PR, that is this one. Oops. And then this one. And then start this, and then verify what it says. This cluster ID is not coming in the output here. That is not a good sign. And if I look at the authentication log, oh, it's not created yet because I haven't created a session. Okay. And here I don't have the cluster ID yet. So the log file is created but doesn't have a cluster ID, and that's because we're missing another bit of work, which needs now to be explained here. So server backport C cluster ID retrieval to 20.2. And so that's where I was looking at the requests. Oh, actually, look at this. Look at this. Agnostic supports for tenants. So, okay, maybe there is. Calling the nil. Okay, so there is some work that has been done here, but maybe it's not complete yet. Okay, so the cluster ID is being set here. So it's not connected. That is the problem. It's not connected. So we're going to connect it. That is a change, in fact, we will probably need to do for the master version as well. So I'm going to add it to the to-do list. So that's a bug. Ensure that the logging package is informed of the cluster ID thanks to the change in PR. This one. So this one, we are going to make a fix for this in the context of 20.2, probably first, and then we are going to make it happen in the master branch. All right. Start SQL is here. And here we have this cluster, set cluster ID, and then server cluster ID. Where is the cluster ID? Remember, let's see. What does start tenant return? Oh, it's the HP address. Oh, we're not even in the right context to do this. All right, so we need to go in here. And then there is a server. So this is a server probably. Oh, it's a SQL server. I don't want a SQL server. I'm trying to find here at which point the server has been fully initialized, so that's not here. So make server. So I think probably, I mean, we're expecting here something called start tenant being called somewhere, and I don't see it. So it's start here. So this start has been set already. So I'm expecting a server, a test server or some other as a SQL server. So is this function use for more than one thing? Server SQL and test server is also set in test server. SQL server args. Oh, it's here. Oh, okay. All right, so it's here. I like this. All right, so it's here. RPC context cluster ID. Thank you. There we go. Get string, I think. Cluster ID. Inform the logging package of the cluster ID. Yep. Why does it say that the log name is not known? Oh, I see that Andrew has pasted a link in the chat. So let's see what this link is about. Yeah, got it. Thank you. We're going to try this. Build short. Fingers crossed. Right. Let's see. Did not really. Oh. Yeah. Cluster ID is not known yet at this point. Okay, it's too early. It is too early. So, what do we do about this? That's kind of a bummer, is it not? Start tenant is too early. I'm going to try to put it at the end. I'm kind of hoping that maybe at the end is early enough. Start sample environment. Maybe here. Yeah, look at this. That is great. That is great. That is absolutely great. Cool. All right. Now we are going to try a command and then verify what we find in the log file. Oh, yes. Cool. There we go. All right, cluster ID is here. Success. Cool. Cluster ID is just one of the things we need here. In fact, we also need the node ID. Which for a CockroachDB SQL pod is not, say, not available in SQL environment. So we are going to use something called the instance ID. And that is a separate piece of information. So we're going to get there in a second. All right. So before we fix this bug, I've just seen it's been 1 hour, and so things go. After 1 hour work, it's important to have a break. So we're going to take a little break, spend some time to hydrate, move a little bit, and we're going to reconvene in, let's say, 5 minutes, let's say 40 past the hour. See you in a minute. Bye. And we are back online. Cool. All right. So where were we? So we have the cluster ID in these outputs, and we also want a node ID or something that looks like it. How do we get there? All right. So I was tempted to do this change only for 20.2, but the truth of the matter is there is already part of the work implemented in 21.1 code, and so it would be much better if we were careful to follow the same models that has been already implemented. So let's look at what the new code is telling us about this. So we have 3 bits of information: the node ID, the tenant ID, the SQL instance ID. And so we are going to change the way this data is reported. We're going to copy paste this here, here, and then okay, copy paste this. And then cool. All right. Cool. This API in 21.1, by the way, is defective because in a SQL tenant, I have a cluster ID and a tenant ID and a instance ID, but I don't have a node ID. So here I need a conditional access. I will commit this change later. All right, and now we are going to remove this and use the logic that was already there, because now we have a atomic thing. So we're going to logging that node ID dot set node ID. I do have some atomic float, atomic int. Probably okay. Cool. Yep. And now we are going to do the same here. Node ID. Huh. Should probably be a D here. My bad. Instance ID. Tenant ID. The string. SQL instance ID. And then is there a check here? If logging 64 tenant ID. Oh. Cool. Instance ID. Off we go. And now adding these fields where they are missing. So this goes away. And then set int32 is not a thing. Store. Thank you. I can try it. Store. And then here following identifiers are reported when enabled. That means we might need to change the commit message in a second. So we have a tenant ID, then a node ID, then a SQL. In fact, let's decide against the node ID, since the node ID is in 21.1 properly defined, but not in 20.2. So we're going to skip that. So we only need those two things here. And then this is an int32, and off we go. Cool. Cool. Why does it complain? I don't know why it complains. Then we can go back in our server where we were earlier, and then there is here a setting we had start tenant, I think. Yeah, it was here. And then we are going to add box set tenant IDs, and I need tenant ID and the SQL instance ID. So how do I get those? How do we get those? They are somewhere. I just don't know exactly where, but we are going to find this out. Probably in the arguments somewhere, right? rx.cfg it's a tenant ID. All right. And then we have a SQL instance ID. So where is the SQL instance ID defined? All right. So here I actually can peeks in the other version, which already has this logic somewhere. Server, test server, set, nope. SQL sync, oh, ooh. Oh. ID container. Node ID container. Oh. Ta-da! Identifiers. We're going to try that. Oh, it might already have built it. All right. Let's. There was an error. Going to remove this for testing. And define what? Set cluster ID. Yes. I remember why. Oh, it's because yeah, set cluster ID. Here, set cluster ID. Cool. Yeah, try this. No, try this. Did it? Tenant ID, instance ID. Yes, it's here. It has arrived. I think. Can I override it in the command line? No tenant ID. Right. Now we are going to include it conditionally in the log file. So probably this setting we had earlier is not the one we need. It's not cluster ID. Server IDs. Server IDs. Server cluster and other server IDs. All right. Server IDs. Server IDs. Yes. If that is not great. Start with comma is entry.x is greater than 0. Start with comma. Yes. Thank you. Cluster ID. And that's buff.string. String, and then we have if instance ID is atomic.load int.to .sql instance ID is instance ID is not 0. So that's going to be cluster tenant. Tadam, 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 tadam. That says and that is instance, and that's going to be there. Right? Right. Cool. Let's try this. Yeah. Server. So server IDs. Okay. Oh, that did not work. Server IDs, always log server IDs. Doesn't look like this this environment variable is working properly. Server IDs. Or maybe I mistyped. Nope. It's not logging some. That is not great. Oh, yes. All this is written to a buffer. We don't override the tags here, it's not going to work, obviously. All right, so I'm confident this change is going to be sufficient for the goal of this change. Sorry, the change is going to be sufficient for the goals we've set today. That is to include the server details in the log output for SQL tenant pods in 20.2. But it's not, the PR is not ready yet. So there is a to-do here. So we are going to do this. So we need to add here, add a unit test for SQL pods, not just KV servers. And we also need to add the same test in version 21.1, possibly for the JSON format instead. We don't want the functionality to be 2.2 only. So let's see. Cluster ID, ten ID, instance ID. Here, all of these are fine. All right. Add a unit test. Ensure in the test we also see the tenant and instance ID, not just ID. So that's really the next step here. So we're going to so this change doesn't need to go there. And this one here needs to be equipped. All right. Let's server IDs. Adding server. And for tenant servers, the tenant and SQL instance ID. All right. All right, there we go. That was the PR. The PR is not ready yet. We are going to push it for discussion, but it's going to be a draft because the testing is not complete yet. And that will complete today's stream once we have done this. Just one of the 3 items we were set to do today. There was some unforeseen complexity as those things go. Unfortunately, that happens. And so because it is not on master, we are going to change the branch here, which makes the PR message, default PR message, more friendly. There we go. Cool. And then the reviewers are going to be Andy Kimball and Tobias. There we go. And we create a draft PR. Is draft still because this needs testing with SQL 10 servers, not just KV, but also hoping to get input from Tobias about where to best position the log.set calls. Is a change in test server.go adequate? Question mark, we don't know yet. We'll see. Thank you. There we go. So that was the stream for today. Thank you for being there. Thank you for sharing. And hopefully this work will have completed or advanced by next week and we can switch over to other things. Thank you all for being here and thank you for watching. Goodbye.